Welcome to the Decentralized Consciousness Podcast. On the show today, I have Monika. Monika, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very well. Thank you. Monika, I've been super excited to have this conversation.
Likewise.
Thank you. We were introduced, well, not really introduced, but a friend of mine had sent me a tweet that you had recently sent out. And actually, I'm not entirely sure about the full context of the tweet, but basically what you had said is you were exploring or interested in the intersections of Bitcoin and higher consciousness.
Yes.
And so I then reached out to you, and we exchanged a few messages and voice memos, and now here we are.
Wonderful. I'm so excited because then I learned about your podcast, and decentralized consciousness is so wonderful. I listened to some episodes and I was blown away. I was really moved and excited to hear that there are people out there who are seeing the world that way and being in Bitcoin and contributing to that space from that spaciousness. So that was really wonderful to hear. It's my favorite topic. I'm obsessed.
Yeah, me too. It's similar to a Bitcoin rabbit hole, going down the rabbit hole of spirituality.
Yeah. It is, and it's interesting because right, with Bitcoin, Bitcoin feels to me like it came from higher consciousness. You know,
Yep.
it's definitely why I was drawn to Bitcoin, because of this technology that is decentralized, and it's open source, and it attracts such amazing humans. Going to those conferences, the most recent one in Madeira especially, I was just blown away by the love and the optimism and the hope for the future, and just beautiful. So it really tends to have that quality of pure consciousness, right? So this is why I was so interested in being open to money altogether, because before that I just could not energetically. I could not open myself to that because it felt very dark and corrupted.
Yeah. No, Bitcoin is very interesting. You know, you had mentioned that you believe that Bitcoin was created with a higher consciousness, and to me that makes little sense. I've now kind of taken the view that everything in the world is a reflection of our inner selves. If you can kind of go along with the matrix or simulation theory, and it was we as the gods and the creators of this reality are building everything, including the money. So when we tune into the the gigantic rabbit hole that is Bitcoin, and we begin to learn more about it and see like this brighter future that that kind of proposes.
Right.
I think there's something that also happens within our inner reflections, and we can see that even with people who haven't necessarily gone down the Bitcoin and spirituality rabbit hole, but they still are learning about different ways to improve themselves. They are changing their diets, they're exercising, they are lowering their time preference. So they're changing their behaviors instead of sacrificing the future for convenience now. For these fear-based patterns, they're doing things for the long term, and that's like it's so interesting because the money is the reflection, but it's like somebody else reflected this and invented it, or a group of people did maybe they channeled it, you could say. And now it's like, as we tune into the vibrations of Bitcoin, it's really changing us on the inside as well. It's quite amazing.
It is remarkable. And this idea of proof of work, right? Proof of work and the value for value. Um, that's another another two ways of thinking, and how that changes you when you are surrounded by that energy, right? When you are seeing that this is implemented by people, and there's that inspiration that moves from within to be of service, to create something of value, and to allow yourself to be valued and to value others, right? So that in ways that is beyond money, but also with this higher consciousness, right? It's almost like, yes, you are rewarded financially in a way, but at the same time, you are also acknowledged in your sacredness, in your uniqueness, and especially when you allowed yourself to step into it and be moved by that consciousness and to create something that is of value, right? So it's I'm seeing
Mhm.
that with the
Mhm.
authors, with, but my entry was initially um, through attending lectures that focused on human rights. So I was sold from at that moment, that when I saw the potential of what Bitcoin and that consciousness can do for the world, right? Um, and my husband was in it a little longer than I. He is more of a tech guy who's also a creative. Recently wrote a book, um, but at the same time, like his way of thinking is different than mine. So I think the fact that um, I saw him shift so much. I saw how he was inspired, and how he started creating things, and how he changed his habits, like you're saying, like how that
Amazing. Yeah.
it was just so beautiful to see. And I said, I want some of that too. What a beautiful ethos. And why not try to see what that is about, even though it's money? And then I said, okay, no, it's not money. It's not just money. There's so much more than that. And it's money done in a way that it was meant to be done, in ways that you cannot continuously inflate the prices around you, and you cannot um, run people on that sort of spinning wheels, hamster wheels, where they don't have time for that spaciousness to remember who they truly are, right? And so I'm just really, really grateful that this happened. And um, at the same time, it was interesting because as I projected myself to the future and saw, let's say, okay, money problem, the wealth issue is solved, and we're here with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the standard, and do all the problems disappear? And I saw that, definitely there's this potential of the wars dissipating, because they're not being sponsored by the printed
Hmm.
money.
Yep.
The you know I saw the potential of obviously, all this trafficking disappearing, drugs, and there's this moment when everyone can exhale. And then I saw this also the potential of what we can do with Bitcoin. And there's still these, even within Bitcoin community, there are still old programs, right, that are brought by individual humans who initially maybe, well, they are transformed through Bitcoin, but some of us, and all of us have parts that are still running on these old programs, be it scarcity or fear, that manifest in that sort of competition, or um, or that sort of just sort of like, well, I need to do this first, that lack of collaboration. You don't see that all the time. You see that sometimes. So this is why this idea of how what is the role of consciousness um, in the space, right? And a while ago, I had this experience where this is a little, well, I promise I'm going to get back to this point, but I had this
No, it's all
experience
good.
where I was guided to. I drove my son to a ski lesson, and I was guided to look at the sun. And I had the sunglasses, and I just heard this inner voice that said, just look at it. Just look at it. Allow yourself to observe it. You don't see much of it here in upstate New
Hmm.
York. Um, but just right now the sun is out, and allow yourself to receive it. And what was interesting, I came back home and I felt these neural pathways of these thoughts just rushing so quickly. It felt like a manic episode, which I've never had, but I can imagine this is how it feels like. And then I was about to fall asleep. And at that point, I said, okay, well, I'm just going to be with this feeling and just allow that to move through me. And then I heard, oh, there's something we want to show you. And there was this experience where everything just went white. And I saw these letters, and it said, you are everything. And then,
Beautiful.
there was a knowing, which I am everything, right? I knew that, but every single cell in my body felt it. And then everything went black, and then white letters showed up and said, you are nothing. And at that point, I honestly thought I died. I was like, this is done. I'm done. Am I dead? I felt my heart beating. So there was this awareness of like, well, I guess maybe not. Maybe I'm still here. And again, there was this guidance. No, we just bear with it. Just watch this process, right? So, and right afterwards, it went back to that whiteboard with these black letters, and it says, "You are everything. Now choose what you want to be." And then my response, my physical response, and my thought went straight into, I am unconditional love. And then I heard, now anchor that on planet Earth. So the process showed me this idea that I've seen many times in different books and learnings and experiences through meditation, or back in the day, I've tried some mushrooms, and there was this fleeting moment of this awareness that there's this quantum field of possibilities. And when you are aware of that, you can choose. The reason fiat, started existing, all these problems within the fiat world started appearing, I think, is because we created from the lack of awareness,
Mm.
right?
Yep. Hmm.
Because when we choose to, when I, this is a little bit more of like the background of where all that came from. I had a lot of physical issues, like near-death experiences and all sorts of things. And I was helping others, and I helped others shift with the tools I had as a psychotherapist. And I sought out tools that were very effective, that connected the ego with the consciousness. But they cleared the trauma, but then most people didn't know what to do with themselves. Like, what do I do now? Right? So what happens when there is no trauma? Right? And how do we act in the world when there's no fear? And then that's when we can step into that process of creation, right? So then I started dabbling into law of attraction, and then also stumbled upon law of one, and all of it just started, all the pieces started being placed together, where if we can connect from that, or create anything, use the tool of Bitcoin, use the tools that we have, the creativity that moves through us, for us, with this awareness, we are that quantum field, and we can choose whatever we want to be, and we can choose to remember that we are all one, right? We are just like, every single one of us is like a cell in this body
Yeah.
of consciousness. And if we allow ourselves to be moved by whatever is moving us, and each one of us is so unique, and every single gift of every single individual is so special, right? Each one of us has this remarkable gift to bring into this world. And if we can do that in ways with this intention and this awareness for the benefit of all, the tool of Bitcoin will never, well, it's hard to corrupt it, but it will be used in ways that are very conscious. We can create really beautiful things for all of us, right? So it's just so wonderful to be mindful of that, be present with that, to create from that, to utilize this beautiful gift that was given to us, like Bitcoin, and to apply these principles from that knowing of who we truly are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's quite amazing. I'm curious about your near-death experiences. Is that something you are comfortable sharing? A lot of people, I've heard a lot of people that will have a near-death experience and they will see some pretty profound things. Did you experience anything like that?
It was really interesting because I think there was, I remember when, even as a little girl, I didn't feel like I quite fit into this world of duality. I didn't see it as
Yeah,
duality, but I
I think a
felt,
lot of kids are that way.
I think so. I think a lot of kids are that way, and a lot of us, and I think maybe all of us. And then somehow,
Mhm.
some people are better at squeezing themselves into these cookie cutter expectations that are imposed,
Mhm.
right, by society,
Mhm.
etc. I just couldn't, because I questioned things so much. I could see one's point of view, and I could see someone else's point of view, and then that happened. I have this vivid memory when I was 3 years old, and my parents were arguing, and they were arguing about money. And I think this is why money for me was associated with altogether pain and conflict and destruction. And then that program ran until very recently. But I was able to hear my dad, and I was able to hear my mom, and I was able to see that they could not speak the same language. They were not able to understand each other, and so for
Yeah.
me, it was, I didn't understand why there are wars, why there's just so much darkness, and why can't we just all love one another? And even as an adult, say, Monica, grow up. Like, this is the reality. This, you can't be that naive. And so I believe I had parts of me that were, that wanted me to transition, not
Yeah.
in a suicidal way, right? There was never that idea of suicide, because I loved life and I loved people. I loved nature. I loved animals. Um, I loved learning and discovering new things. But it was more about the physical body. The physical felt very heavy and hard, um, and then it started showing up as an autoimmune, which was really interesting. It's like the body attacking itself.
Yeah.
Um, so I had an ulcerative colitis, which my son was 3 when, oh, before that I had like a car accident, and, there were a few other near death moments where anything could have happened. Like we would play outside with kids, and we would jump out of these buildings. This was in Poland back in communism. There's really no TV, which was great. We were outside and playing
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
Um, and we would do a lot of crazy things, like, bicycle somewhere into the field of wild horses and ride them. And moments when everyone's like, well, you could have died. And I could have. And somehow something always would stop me. And even the car accident prior to this, um, the most recent near death experience, was very, very close. Everyone who saw the scene was almost, I mean, they were just like, how are you still alive? And then the autoimmune, um, when my son was 3, I ended up going to the hospital because there was, well, for a while there was this. I'm not sure if you know about the ulcerative colitis, but there's a lot of bleeding, and
Hmm.
there was anemia, and there was dehydration, lack of movement because I was really weak, and I really wanted to heal naturally. I didn't want any steroids, anything that was not pure. And at that moment, I mean, from hindsight is 2020, but looking back, I realized, I mean, everything has its purpose, and it would have been best to stop that with the steroids, and then clean, detox, etc. But I didn't. So the way it unfolded is that clots formed in my lower legs, and they shot up to my lungs, and one was moving towards the heart. So I fainted. I didn't know this was happening. I just knew that my legs were hurting. I ended up in a hospital. They said, "Oh, you're just dehydrated and you need to be on meds." Started taking the meds, but then when they released me a day after, I fainted, and I called out to my husband. I said, "I think I'm about to faint." And I remember coming back and seeing his outline, like an energy outline, and my heart was beating very, very fast. And and then at that point, I said, "I think we really have to go to the hospital again, but let's go to a different one." I was guided to be to this was in New York City back in the day, and we went to a different hospital, and even there the doctors were like, "Yeah, you're young, don't worry, nothing's happening." I said, "Well, why do I feel like my heart is racing as if I was running a marathon, and I'm not? There's something off." And I
Hmm.
fainted, and the moment I said I fainted, some light bulb went on in one of the doctors, and he says, "Wait a minute, you fainted?" I said, "Yes." And I hear these words again, like, "Do a scan." I said, "Can you please do a scan?" And then they've done the scan, and then I see 8 doctors surrounding me, and they said, "All right, you have 5 minutes to call your family. You're going to have an open heart surgery." And that was
Oh,
really,
wow.
really scary. Obviously, like, I did not expect that. I really was not ready for that. But at the same time, I said, I need to see someone who's spiritual. I really need to see someone who is spiritual, who can talk to me about something, say something comforting that will soothe my soul. And this woman, I think her name started with an M, Margaret or Margie, showed up, and she was like an interfaith minister, and her words were quite bizarre. It was almost like, she says, "Well, imagine you're on an airplane and you have this amazing equipment with an amazing crew, and for some reason the plane is crashing, going down, and the rest is up to the universe." And all I heard as they were injecting the anesthesia, "The rest is up to the universe." So there was
Yeah,
this
that's
ultimate
awesome.
surrender. Yeah, it's like this, like, it's my desire is to be back, because I still managed to, like, catch the doctor's hand, the surgeon's hand. I said, it was Dr. Reddy, I remember his name. I said, "Doctor, can you promise me I'll be back? I really want to be there for my son." And he says, "I can't promise you anything, my dear." And then I hear, "The rest is up to the universe." So there was this beautiful, like, desire. But there was also the knowing, like, my soul knew that death is not the end. It's just a transition into a different form. But the human desire was there to be there for my child. And as I went into the anesthesia, I felt this experience of of things happening. I felt peace throughout the entire process. It was just this peace. I felt peace. I didn't have any of these near death experiences people describe, about, like, seeing
Hmm.
my guides and the light. And I've experienced that afterwards when I trained in past life regression. But in this moment, I, for some reason, I didn't. I just felt peace. And then the next thing that I remember is
That was all you
when
needed at that time, I guess, huh?
yeah, maybe that's all I needed, but it was just this beautiful peace. It was this blissful peace and just trust that whatever's about to happen is for the benefit of my highest and everyone's highest good. And there was no other choice. and and then I just remember they were pulling out the tube from intubation, which then caused other problems with like breathing and all sorts of things. But this other doctor that I didn't know running up to me and said, "You were the sickest patient in the ICU." I said, "I know, this was really, really tough." And he says, "No, you don't understand. Like, we removed every clot, we cleared everything, and we put you together, and then your heart stopped." And the doctor was
Oh,
already home, and the cleaning lady was just cleaning around, and all of a sudden the monitor stopped, and we had to call back the doctor. We were all there, and somehow like when we opened you up and we revived you, and we decided to leave you open. I was open, completely open for like 24 hours.
wow,
Because there was
that's
something with
crazy.
it was crazy. That heart went back, started again, and Dr. Reddy showed up, and I said, "Thank you for saving my life." And he says, "You can't thank me. You have to, like, it's not me. This thank him." And, he pointed up into the sky, although I know God
Yeah.
consciousness is everywhere. But the other thing that I experienced, there was, when I opened my eyes, I saw this huge being of, like, it looked like an angel. And all I saw, I remember just bowing. She bowed down and just disappeared. And then I found this presence of this light family around me, and I heard, "It's not your time to come, it's your time to still be here." And that was it. That was all I remember. From coming back to health, took at least a year, and um, um, the whole process was very scary afterwards, because when they scraped the trachea, by pulling out the tube, I had like granulomas, so I couldn't breathe. Like a tiny little dust particle would start choking me, and they had to do
Wow.
a surgery. This other doctor wanted to, like, literally create a hole in my throat and remove ribs and expand the throat. And being guided by intuition, everything inside me said, "No, run, see another doctor for consultation." Thankfully, I followed that intuition, and other doctors would say, "No, we've had things like that happen to babies. This heals within a year. I mean, it won't be perfect, but it will heal on its own. The granulomas can be removed, but you don't need any holes in your throat. You don't need any additional stuff that they're proposing, right?" So there was always some sort of a guidance process, right? And then when I asked my higher self, why did I need to experience this? And then it was all about, like, so you can finally start loving yourself, so you can finally start embodying being here, and then eventually, like, seeing the physical as sacred as well, right? That was like the main message, that you don't have to, because I had this program where I felt like I need to save humanity. um this is actually later on, when I worked with now my co-creator of this program called Masters of Creation. So I met her at the time when I was in this like dire straits, when the body improved, but the body improved from the surgery, but the ulcerative colitis was still active. And I was in one of the like additional flares that happened afterwards, and losing blood and petrified of going back to the hospital. Um, I knew that ultimately it would be, I had, experienced the blood transfusions and steroids, etc. And she was able, with quantum healing, just get into the quantum field and shift my hemoglobin levels, which my husband could not believe. Like, he says, "This is impossible." I said, "Honey,
That's incredible.
I came out of the fog and I'm functioning. I don't need it anymore." He says, "No, we're going to the doctor. We're going to get you tested. We want to make sure the hemoglobin is okay, because this is dangerous." And And I said, okay, we can go to get tested. It's fine. Like, I can get my blood drawn and see the results. And he could not believe. And the doctors were in awe. And they said, your hemoglobin levels are better than they've ever been before. So she then also pinpointed why this happened to begin with. And actually, the autoimmune was initiated because I was working with a client this was right after my graduation from school. This is why, like, I guess, I really, in terms of education, I don't believe schools teach you much. You learn a lot afterwards,
Yeah.
So they
That's
threw
right.
me in, right? So it's like, it's really doesn't matter. It's just a piece of paper.
Mhm.
But it somehow in the fiat world gives you some credibility, which is so silly because it really
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah.
You know,
I totally
that you're
agree.
not skilled, right? So they give you um, this like all of a sudden you have to do this
Certification.
certification and you have to do this experience work, and they throw you into this, like, I was working for a clinic and my first client was like deeply suicidal, and she happened to be Polish and very suicidal. She says, I'm on the verge of killing myself. And I knew she meant it. She had a plan. Everything was, and I ran to my supervisor and I asked her about, how do I proceed? How do we help this client? How do we help this patient? And she says, well, first and foremost, and that's the only thing you need to worry about, just get her to sign that, you told her to call 911, and so that you're not reliable for your license.
Wow.
Right.
Liability. Wow.
Reliability. And I could not believe that. Are you kidding me? This
Another
is
fiat pattern, right?
right. Like, that's all there is to it. You're not concerned about this human being who is in dire straits. And I don't have the tool. You are my supervisor. I don't have the tools to help her. You can, and that there was nothing else. So my mind, my ego panicked, and I'm like, whatever it takes, I need to save her. And what ended up happening, according to the my friend who's the who I sought out at that point. She was the quantum healer. She says, you took on that energy, and for you it manifested as an autoimmune. And the woman, the girl, ended up like, she's like, she says, she called me the next time. She says, I have to cancel the session. I am healed. I don't know what you've done, but you've healed me. Right.
Wow.
So I literally and I've had this, and then I noticed I have this pattern of taking the problems onto myself. Later I'm learning that that's not the way to go about it, because it's not serving this person. Right. It might, like, I've learned through the practice that ultimately my role is to be a guide for them to be able to integrate whatever is stopping them from their highest timeline, from the highest functioning, and helping them integrate this beautiful material. This is their lotus, right? This is like, no lotus, no mud, no lotus. I can't. Who am I to take that away from them? And who am I to think they're not capable of healing themselves? And all I need to do is just show them, guide them how, so they can step into their own empowerment, right? So that's shifted a lot. From like empathy to compassion, and yeah, but it was interesting. That's how it all started. And then I realized ultimately it was happening because I really wanted to check out. And then when I thought about, why do I want to check out, I perceived this reality in ways that is in just pure love and consciousness. And so how can we undo this pattern? How can we reverse engineer? So this is when, like, law of attraction and then love one stepped in, and I started applying these methods where I connected them. I cleared the patterns. I connected them with the higher self, with this self with capital S, that pure consciousness, and then shifted them in the mode of creation, that it has no attachment, that is ultimately surrendered to, like, that might point the consciousness into a desired outcome, the outcome desired by the ego, but ultimately trust that whatever unfolds is for the benefit of their highest good, and know that everything is happening for them. Sorry, this is a very long-winded answer. I
No,
hope
I love it. Keep going. Keep going.
I think that's it. That's pretty much it. So that was the near death experience. That was
Wow.
really insane. And but I'm here and I see this differently. We are, we're not here to observe the reality and react to it. I mean, the contrast is teaching us that which we don't want, but it's still consciousness, right? So it's still sacred. It's a gift, and if you can identify, okay, I don't want this, then what do I want instead? And then shift your awareness into it, what it is that you want, and focus yourself vibrationally in that state. When you clear the blocks, of course, because you don't want any signals like interference. Like you literally just have to clear the blockages, so you can be that pure consciousness, and then step into the role of a creator with the surrendering of like surprise and delight me, because I know my ego knows this, probably like thinks this is the most optimal outcome, but there might be some other beautiful paths that are even better than that, right? So just having that humble approach, like I I believe this is the best, but I know I'm working from something that is greater than me, right? That I'm allowing this spaciousness, this consciousness to work through me, um, and always with the intention for the benefit of all. So that's my story.
Yeah. That's yeah, very beautiful. And wow, thank you very much for sharing all of that. Um,
Thank you for listening.
yeah, yeah. You had you had mentioned something that I'm very, very curious about in my own life, which is healing from desires of the ego versus healing from the higher self. So, as an example, um, I'm able to pretty easily, I think most of us are able to look at myself and look at all these things which I see as imperfect. Namely, as an example, my eyesight. Like I wear glasses, and one thing I'm very interested in healing is my eyesight. I want to be able to see 20/20 without wearing contacts or glasses. But I
Mm,
also know at the same time that part of my desire to do this is I want to be able to provide. I have the Bitcoiner ethos of don't trust, verify. So
yes.
I want to be able to provide not only to myself, but to people around me. Like, look what I was able to do. I was able to take this condition, which we have no explanation for what causes it in our biology. I have an astigmatism. They're just misshapen.
Hmm.
I'm able to do this thing, and I was able to heal it by doing absolutely nothing except heal it energetically. And so I'm looking, there's like this element of the ego that wants to heal it. And for me, when I try to go into sessions and focus on the specific aspect, it doesn't seem like I'm making any progress.
Mm. So tell me about the sessions. What are the sessions?
So there's a couple different ways that we do it in decentralized consciousness. So
Mhm.
decentralized consciousness is basically just, and this is good because I feel this is going to be an episode that will get widely shared with a vast audience. So to hash out and describe what decentralized consciousness is, basically what it is it's just kind of an umbrella community, if you will, of people who are, I would say, it's very much what you're described. They're very what you described, which is very dedicated to the sovereignty of their own being and dedicated to connecting to their highest selves. One thing in this reality that we all have in common is that we are all very interested in Bitcoin and its implications for humanity. So that's kind of a common thread amongst the decentralized consciousness community right now. Obviously, that that might change over time as different people come in and we attract different people, but that's kind of the overall ethos of decentralized consciousness. And so within decentralized consciousness, the founder of decentralized consciousness, his name is Sama Katharo, and he has hosted a lot of different meditations, momentum meditations, which is 3 meditations a week, where he has facilitated different meditations. But the idea from the onset, the intention was to do very similar to what you guys are doing with Infinity Source Code and Masters of Creation, where the idea is to be able to unlock this power, the same things that he is doing for other people. And that's what that's what ended up what he created last year. We did a program called Node to Node Protocol, and the node being the highest self. And in the Node to Node Protocol, we practiced with one another on offering sessions. And so when we do sessions, I've done obviously sessions by myself, meditating by myself, and just kind of I'll passively let flow take me where it needs to take me. A lot of times I fall asleep when I do that, but I think I still go into a deep meditative state when that happens. And other times I will try to, the word attack comes up for me, which I know probably is probably not a great program, but I try to attack specific things. So if it's a money program or my eyesight, and a lot of times I will notice after the session a hyper awareness about the specific program. So I will notice throughout the day how much I will let a money program guide my behaviors. And I will also notice, like in the case of eyesight, I will also notice how much I identify with my bad eyesight, or I already labeled it bad. So believing it to be imperfect, and the attachment to glasses and contacts and being uncomfortable, not being able to see, and all of these kinds of things. But they're still kind of hanging around. It seems like they end up being stuck. So a long-winded response to your question about sessions.
So that is so interesting. As you were talking about this, I love the idea node to node, higher self to self sessions, and to be present in that. And you caught yourself with the wording that you chose about like attack. So one of the modalities that I really love that I've learned through being a therapist, and then we have to, in order to maintain a license, we have to continuously train, which is great. And I ran out of these basic trainings, and I'm so glad there was this other beautiful modality called internal family systems that showed up. And that was also channeled as I spoke to the creator, Dr. Richard Schwartz. But he channeled it in a way that is able to be received by the academic community that's very not spiritual, very scientific. So he was able to, now there's like a wait list for these kind of trainings, and so many people want to take it because it's ultimately connecting self with the divine self, right? With capital S. He calls this self with S, right? With capital S. So divine self he doesn't use the word divine, it just uses the word self to the parts of you that are ego. I mean, there are, the emotions that are showing up, and all parts are welcomed and everything can show up. And as you connect with it through from the higher self, from your truth, the qualities of self are compassion and connection and curiosity, and courage and creativity. Usually there's like this element of curiosity and compassion. So when you meet these aspects of yourself with that energy of higher self, right? Which is compassionate, loving. It's almost like, well, you also unblend these other parts that are polarized. So like parts that don't like these parts that are struggling or have something, have an issue, right? So you're just asking them to step back. They don't always want to step back,
Yep.
because they first need to be addressed and understood. So, for example, like anger, usually is there as a protector for most people. And when you validate and meet it with compassion and understanding and curiosity, and you sit there in that higher self consciousness and you meet that part of you, part of the client with that loving acceptance, and then you ask these questions that like what would happen if you stop being afraid, right? You you dive into an exile. This is how the terminology, there's an exile part that is hiding underneath the, so the bigger the anger, the bigger mostly it's terror underneath, or fear, extreme fear, and anger is a protector, right? So there's a vulnerability underneath. So then, with anger can step back when it trusts that, like trust the energy of the self, and it's building rapport with these parts of you. So not passing through, not like moving, not bulldozing through it, but lovingly just building that trust so that this part of you can give you space to work with that vulnerability. And then when you do the same thing with that vulnerable part of you, and when that part is healed, and when it releases the whatever the extreme emotion it's been holding on, and the beliefs that it's been holding on, and it takes in, like, then it's like an upgraded software. It takes in a new software ideas of the truth, like I am safe, I am safety, I am confidence, I am love, I feel, whatever it wants to have, I have the confidence that all is always working out for me, or whatever that is. The part that was angry is able to let go of the anger, and then take on, again, upgrade itself to the higher consciousness, right? So like I can be courageous, and I can be discerning, and I can be present, but I don't have to act out of fear anymore. That anger is no longer initiated, activated automatically from that. The moment anything reminds that part of something that could potentially be dangerous to the one that was being protected, that initially had that wound from childhood or even past life. I mean, really, I've had parts of me that I've discovered. So, like, for example, the loved one came about because, when things were happening during COVID and all sorts of things were, just infringed upon. And I had parts that were activated in terms of fear and extreme fear. And during meditation, I would hear my guide say, well, we're training you to let go of fear. I said, okay, well, what's going on? Why is this fear so intense? In terms of not fear of the COVID, but fear of the forced action, right? So of not having a choice, not having the sovereignty to choose what it is that I want, right? And not having the sovereignty to have the spaciousness to do my own research and choose what I want. There was this panic inside. And when um, I through these through everything that happened, I realized, like, oh my God, all of that is a gift, because it leads me to like answers, and finding these answers and modalities that actually already exist. So for example, the new German medicine showed up, and then from the new German medicine, there's an unfolding called the recall healing, in Polish totalna biologia, developed. So one was developed by the German doctor, and then this French doctor took this and developed it even further. And it's really popular in Poland. So I found this person who was able to guide me, as I was blinded to the source of this fear, because I mean, I could pinpoint it to this present, but there was still more stuff. I felt like it was just deeper than that. And And it was interesting, and she just, because it's hard to like guide yourself as you're moving through these intense emotions. So it's wonderful to always have someone else to like move to be that node, that higher self for you, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And just like run whatever's coming up. And the program that showed up was, I saw myself as a Native American woman with a baby, and these white people coming, coming to like slaughter the village, and they were slaughtered. Everyone got killed, and I was one of the very last ones. And this tears just pouring down my cheeks, and
Hmm.
and saying like, what do we do wrong? We were so sacred. We were on this beautiful land, connecting with nature,
Right.
connecting
It's
with
like, how did
others,
you
right?
attract that?
Right. Like, what is the law of attraction does not apply here at all.
Hmm.
And you know what the answer was?
Mm.
The
What's that?
answer was there, because you saw them as other, because you saw them as other.
Gotcha. Hmm.
And that was this whole thing where this awareness unraveled the autoimmune ultimately, like the disease itself. Um, and then with few other sessions through Masters of Creations that like clear things finally, where I was able to travel and it, behave like a normal human being without having to again rush to a hospital, etc., and do all sorts of things, because things would come back. Like the original taking on that energy was identified with Sherry, right? And then the quantum healer. And then I still had a program that was seeing anyone, even clients that I wanted to rescue. So I was playing the role, somewhere in past life, I must have been the like the one who inflicted pain, the perpetrator. And then I've been a victim, and I've been a rescuer, and it's been this cycle of continuous repetition of all these programs, right? And then when you step outside of that, you're like, okay, I saw them as other. So in German medicine, to answer your question about eyesight, it'll be interesting, and the recall healing will be interesting to look into it. They've identified that every
Hmm.
single physical condition has a specific conflict, a psychological conflict. In the eyes, what's coming to me, and I'm not sure if it's true, would have to be verified. What I'm seeing, because for myself as well, I haven't addressed that part as well. I also wear contacts and glasses, and but it's not wanting to see the future, because the future was hard to see, like you did, right?
Interesting.
Like, yeah. So it's some program that might be still running that says, well, future was really scary, even though now it's different for us as we've like done the work, right? Or are doing and are still doing the work in terms of working on ourselves and knowing who we are, and then discovering Bitcoin. Even though having all these components, there might still be an unconscious program that runs from like in some like the point where everything began. The source of it has to be somewhere with this belief where we took on this, the future is scary, like this, what we're seeing as, if you tap into the matrix of fiat, everything is crumbling. When you tap
Yeah.
into
Hmm.
the
I know.
matrix of like
Terrifying, almost.
right, it's, yeah, it is, and you don't want to see that, right? So that could be a
No.
metaphor for you not wanting to see. And if you are able to, so I wouldn't see it as an attack. Like if you can see that,
Hmm.
um, and locate that in your body, have compassion towards it, activate it, let it feel what it feels, ask it to show you what it needs to show you as far back as possible. Is this the root of it? Is this the root of it? Get to the root of it, and whatever needs to happen there, either forgiveness and forgiving, like it's ultimately like the ho'oponopono, where you forgive others and you forgive yourself, because there is no other, right? And then
Yeah.
and then
Yes.
there, from there, bringing yourself into this, like you clear that program, you deepen like the beautiful feelings that emerge, because underneath all the programs is our essence, which already is perfect, right? And then
Yeah.
you just step into the process of creation, where you see yourself without attachment. It would be so nice to see. It would be so nice to see clearly.
Hmm.
I'm ready to see what's coming into the future. I'm happy to see. I'm happy to see that things are always working out for me and humanity, and see how, whatever it is that you want to say, and vibrationally
Hmm.
embody that and surrender it. This or better for the benefit of my highest good, because that's key. Like the attachment is usually that which prevents from things unfolding, right? So just to summarize, like compassion, uh, taking it to the root of it, and then creation mode through the thought from pure consciousness and the feeling that activates it, and surrender to this or better, knowing that whatever's coming, whether your eyesight heals or not, it is always working out for you, right? So it's like there's a
Yeah.
gift in everything.
Yes. Yeah, there was a really amazing quote that came up in a recent momentum meditation, which is,
Mhm.
if we must have expectations, let them be that the world is, or the universe is, twisting and turning exactly the way we need it to. That should be the
Beautiful.
only expectation that we have. And
Beautiful.
that's, yeah, yeah, it was so, yeah, so profound for me. Um, yeah,
Yeah, that's just the entire trajectory that it's all, but even the contrast, even the fiat world, right? Caleb, like the it's happening for us, because if it
yeah.
wasn't for that, we wouldn't have woken up. We wouldn't have sought out the spirituality and the awareness of who we are. We wouldn't have sought out Bitcoin. We wouldn't have created like, we are not here to observe it and get stuck in it and fight with it. We're
Mhm.
here to notice what it is, and use that information to create the world that we want, right? To again step into the process of creation.
Yeah, I mean, and right now, spirituality is something that is considered separate. It is something that has there's a bunch of models around it, but in the future, it will just be a part of everyone's daily life. All of this stuff. So
I hope so. I really, I think the most, what are, why are there issues in the world? I think if there's no other, it's ultimately parts of us that have broken out, parts of consciousness that have broken away from source, right?
yeah.
Away from the awareness that they are source, they are that pure love consciousness, and and started creating based on ego. And like, that's when the ego starts fearing and feeling the lack, because it is an imposter in a way. But ego can be utilized when it knows, when it's like, I don't know who said this beautiful quote, when like the mind, the ego, like human mind, not the universal mind, but the human mind, uh,
Hmm.
is like, is an awful master, but is an excellent server, right? Like, if we can see ourselves as the human build is to just receive and to be able to be a channel of that higher consciousness and act from that, the ego stops. It's not its job to save anything. It's not its job to change anything. It's not its job to figure out the solution. Its job is to ultimately surrender to the higher self and execute the inspiration from within. That's it. It's
Uh,
perfect in terms of implementing the logical. It's like, okay, now how do we proceed? How do we move that? Like, it
what
can
are the
start
steps?
thinking, what are the steps, the strategies, the physical implementation. But the problem is, like, it's disconnected from that and thinks it's on its own, and it just makes all these mistakes. So all the fiat problems arose from that separation of the ego and
Yeah.
the divine, right? When it finally just reconnects. So reconnecting the higher self to all these parts, and when they start feeling that energy of self with capital S, the higher self, and when they're like, wow, like, this is beautiful and powerful and loving, and like, it's not there to get rid of us, it's not there to destroy us, it's there to like upgrade us and improve us and make us the best version of ourselves. And it's done with love, not through like any agenda. So the ego begins to surrender, And then it becomes the servant in a way, like the one that a beautiful marriage of like an execution of just here to like act from within, and any inspiration that comes from within, then it's like that's when the creation process is so fun, because then you start creating things like it's like intuitively guided. You're no longer thinking, oh, like I need to do this because that will make me feel good. It's like, no, I move into that direction. Something tells me, okay, this feels really good. And all of a sudden, you have this amazing meeting with someone, and things start unfolding, and one thing leads to another, or all of a sudden, like you're like, I don't need any more glasses. So
Yeah.
it's just flows. It's this beautiful flow of without an agenda, but ultimately this like ultimate surrender, right?
Yep. Yeah. There's where the big conflict, at least the way that I see it right now, it seems like there's a big conflict between a lot of the Bitcoiner ethos and the spirituality ethos is don't trust, verify. And
Mm.
it can be very difficult to get through these initial stages of just trusting and surrendering, because the verification that Bitcoiners are so used to seeing is so dense and concrete. Mathematics is one of the most concrete constructs of reality, right? And so when you're going through life with this, looking for this proof, but the universe doesn't offer it in the same way that it does with mathematics, it can be tough for a Bitcoiner to surrender in that way.
I see what you're saying. And, mathematics can also be mathematics, and like physics, quantum physics especially, can be
Yeah.
a guiding light towards that surrender. But at the same time, see, I understand it's discernment, right? So, but this discernment will be most effective when the trust starts from within. So the parts of you that don't trust, when they're met with the higher consciousness and they're healed, and then they trust that so it's ultimately like the reconnecting with all these parts of you. The goal of it is to just invite them um, to speak up when something concerning appears, to voice there. It's almost like the self is the CEO, and all the parts of you, the ego
Hmm.
parts of you,
Right.
like show up around the round table, and they're like, well, this, let's just verify this information. How do we know this is to be trusted, et cetera, et cetera? And the self listens and says, I see you, I hear you, I understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate you. And I really, just once they've been healed, they're still going to show up, and it's a good thing, because we need that discernment and we need that input, and then say, okay, well, if you can allow me to speak for you, not from you, from that fear, if you can allow me to, just like if
For
you
you,
can,
not
so
from you.
yeah, exactly. So it's almost like, and if you can just allow yourself to like dip yourself into this consciousness that I am, you will get that guidance and intuition. And you can then also use the logical tools of mathematics, et cetera, and just see if this is the way to proceed. I get before the thought appears to be logical for me, it's like first intuitive, and I get a strong yes or no. And no matter what someone's saying, they could be phrasing things in beautiful, beautiful ways, but the vibration of the words behind what they're saying does not match. At that point, right away, I know that's my number one verification before the logic. I
Right.
can then go and verify logically, but it's always true. Like that's almost like, no, this
Yeah.
is, yeah. So it's discernment. I think that's very valuable, because we can't be gullible. Like in spirituality, it's like surrender, yes, trust, but it's not surrender to the faults and the ego acts and creations. You're surrendering to the self within the universe that is benevolent, and then trusting that that is going to guide you to
Yeah.
discern, that first and foremost will guide you along with the logical mind, that you've made the right choice, right? So I think it's wonderful that they have that, because I think maybe some people, I don't know if this is true. I've never seen, I mean, I have an intuitive sense that this happened. I feel like, through all these reincarnations and all these beautiful uh, uh, civilizations that were there before, in terms of, like, for example, once they speak about Atlantis, and there was a lot of us got fooled, and then we sort of got back here and said, We will not make that mistake again." But now, how do we not get stuck into that fear? We have to be able to transcend that, use that information, right, and apply it in ways that first, comes from consciousness and then through the mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I have, this this model that is, or a story that's rather interesting way to look at it, I think. And that is, because we all come from this place of perfection where we know everything, where everything is one, we come from basically from a dream where it's easy, and we decided to create this world where we forgot how easy it was to just experience something a little bit different. And, when we look at the world today, which is so far from oneness, it's very, very separate. It's a very, very dense reality. We could say that we are living in one of the densest, most separate realities because we just wanted to see what it was like and wanted to learn from it. And when we are able to accept that for what it is and just understand that, we're this, we can speak for this reality and not from it. And this is something that is, it is something that we're creating for ourselves to experience. It's not so, we're not so attached to the pain. And I think that attachment to pain really comes from the attachment to joy. It comes from missing the joy that was there when we're experiencing pain. And I think for us to kind of shift and move into this new Christ consciousness or Bitcoin consciousness, decentralized version where we're all really respecting the highest self and surrendering to the highest self. I love that concept because I'd never heard that before of allowing the surrender to the highest self specifically and giving the highest self the power. It's going to be, just a completely different paradigm that we're shifting into.
I love what you just said. That's so beautiful. It really is, because we have created this reality that we've entered, the duality, to learn from it. And the thing is, like, I just kind of, like, as the humanity evolves, initially we get stuck in it. We become unconscious, like, robots that execute the programming 9 to 5, not questioning anything, acting out of fear, trauma, etc. And then, something just awakens us and we start questioning things like, wait a minute, this is not adding up. This doesn't make sense. Oh, then, like, going down those rabbit holes, like through Bitcoin and through consciousness, etc. And then a lot of like, even like the spiritual people get stuck in that sort of, like, I was one of them, of course, like, wanting to check out from this reality, because it was too painful. And that's sort of like, what is wrong with this, and what's this, and why, and then just completely dissociating from the physical, from the money, from anything, like, into meditation and connection with a higher self. I've had issues embodying myself, like embodying I felt like my embodiment is only up to my heart center, and I couldn't bring it down into the rest of the body. So the issues of the
Yeah.
digestion were there. And finally, when it's like, wow, no, it's happening for us and there is no other. And we created all of this to learn what? To learn that that which we are, but we can choose to be otherwise. And that we can surrender, we can act from, allow ourselves to be inspired, to be moved, to be animated from that spaciousness, from that consciousness that we are. And then consciously, not unconsciously, like everything else happens, like consciously now step into this empowerment of knowing and remembering who we are so that we can bring that heaven on earth in
Yeah.
this lifetime. Wouldn't that be nice for our children, for everyone else?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I can see that you are you're a co-creator for Masters of Creation. She had said this, so you're very focused on helping humanity, and I can really, really feel that. So,
That's wonderful. I'm also doing this. I'm so excited about this other project. There are two other co-creators. One is French, living in Spain, and one is Swiss. She's in Switzerland. I think she's Swiss or maybe French. And they are from the
mhm.
community of Sydney Banks, the three principles. So he was this enlightened master who was once, I think, like a person who worked in the mill, and he had this awakening where he realized, like, there's this universal mind, which is the similar thing that we were talking about, universal mind, and then the consciousness, he calls it, which is the awareness of the universal mind. And that thought is you can have like the ego thought, or you can have that big thought, and that from there you can create that reality. And then, Abraham Hicks, that's channeled through Esther, like talks about the
Yeah.
feeling, right? So like feeling, the better feeling thought. When you are aligned with a better feeling thought, it's ultimately your signal that you are in alignment with your higher self. Right. So it's like, what is that better feeling thought? You can focus on that which you don't want, but you will create more of that. Right. Or you can focus on that which you truly want and focus on that ultimate, absolute uh, um, version of it. And then you will create more of that. So your reality will be reflecting that which you want. And some people might be still experiencing things that are unwanted because of their focus. So this soul learning organization is to like deepen that, sort of be the change you want to see in the world. And we're also creating like coaching programs there, and then eventually, like, whoever, there could be also co-creators. They don't have to go through the coaching program, so anyone who's already aware of who they are can be a creator and run clubs and programs, and just donate 10% back to soul learning, so that eventually that money will cover whatever expenses there are. And then access of it will be donated towards project, like environmental projects, and soul consulting in a way to companies that want to create from that inside out, from that level of awareness, with that like awareness for the benefit of all, and for the benefit, like that includes them, of course. So that's a really fun thing that I can see fitting in, like, with everything. And I can also see a beautiful collaboration between decentralized consciousness and whatever way we can be of
Mhm.
service to what you are all doing, which is so beautiful and so special and so unique and so valuable. Um,
Yeah.
it would
Thank
be
you.
an honor, truly. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
I feel that
listening to
too.
that podcast, it's so special, really is. It's so special, so special, because I couldn't stop listening. I still really want to listen to all of those podcasts, but just very, what you've created and the value that you're adding to the space of Bitcoin is remarkable. I'm just so grateful for you and your partners.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, because it can be, as I'm sure you know, in fiat terms, it can be rather thankless, especially when you're just beginning and you're really doing a lot to kind of put yourself out there, and it feels like you're doing a lot of kind of marketing efforts to just kind of raise awareness. And but we've taken on the mindset of a higher intention, which is to
Yes.
it's just to provide value. I mean, we just want to provide legitimate, genuine value from our highest self, following our genuine curiosities, our genuine passion, and taking action that will help other people. And our belief is that by doing that, by kind of treating life, by treating the world as a playground for a place for us to explore and, create in this much a different way than we're used to, in the workplace and careers and in the LinkedIn world. It's like it's really quite amazing what it does for us. At least I know what it does for me, as an individual, because I've kind of committed myself to, releasing and recording a certain number of podcasts. This level of discipline helps me to continue to recenter and continue to create from this higher place, and it keeps building momentum. It's pretty amazing.
I love that so much. And that's it. It's ultimately, and just, allowing ourselves to be guided from within, right? So it's like this inspiration, this feels good, this feels valuable. There's no agenda here, providing whatever value if someone is interested in this, and whatever way to whoever, like it's ultimately the same goal in mind, to just bring that beautiful awareness. And 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 there's no competition. It's like, I love that you said that it's just like a playground. We're all playing in this, and we're all here to support each other organically, like mycelium, feeding,
Yeah. Hmm.
like supporting the nutrients. And they're like, your win is my win is your win, and we can all somehow build each other up. And the signal that you send is different than what I send, and they're both equally valuable and unique, right? So like different people might be attracted to this versus this, but it doesn't matter, because all of it is for the benefit of us all, right? Like we're like all cells in that body of consciousness. So
Yep.
it's all
Hmm.
working out for us. There's no loser here.
Yeah,
Which is so
exactly.
beautiful. Like it's just fun. It becomes fun and creative, um and playful, what feels good. Yeah, and it's like, what can we do to help each other out, to build each other, to build ourselves and others, right? Because there is no other. So might as well do that. Like hurting yourself is hurting another person. Well, hurting yourself is hurting another, and vice
Yep.
versa, right? So it's,
Hmm.
if we know that, like, why it just makes sense to like play together and co-create and collaborate and share things. For like the way you phrase things is so unique and special, right? And when we surrender to the higher consciousness, and when I'm out of my ego mind, and I can allow myself to flow from that, from the awareness, what comes through me is also a translation of that, in its unique imprint, right? So again, it's just like these fractals of consciousness projected outwards, and it's fun. It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Monica, we're kind of running up on time here, so I
Yes,
think
we are.
what I'd like to kind of hit on next is, let's talk a little bit about all of the projects that you're working on. So all of what I have written down here, you've got several websites. So there's Sovereign 21, there's soullearning.org, and then you have your website, which is therapyandbeyondcenter.com. And then you also have the Infinity Source Code. So maybe just kind of briefly list off all of those projects for people, and how they can get in touch with you.
So the I recently switched from Therapy and Beyond Center to Sovereign 21, but it redirects you to Therapy and Beyond Center. So it's
Got
just
it. Got it.
one same website that is um, now being updated, and I would love to like implement the like Bitcoin and eventually like donation. It's not Because
Hmm.
there was an episode I was listening with Sama, and he was talking to Arya, the walk-in, which I
Yeah.
really like. That was just such a beautiful episode,
Yeah.
and
It's a
he
great
right.
conversation.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful. It's so special, and he mentioned something that like I had this passing thought a while ago, and this because that is ultimate surrender and ultimate trust of like not having a specific price for things, but just allowing and complete surrender and trust that like it's all about, like someone, whatever value someone finds in it, whatever they're able to, feel like they can offer, right? It doesn't, like, some people might not like be able to offer what I initially asked for, right? But just be able to, like, whatever is possible, whatever feels good. If it feels good, there's no pressure. So just like this trust that uh, I am being taken care of by the universe, so just like I love
Yeah.
that sort of just remove that pricing and just like leave it up to donation and open the possibility for Bitcoin. And so there's that website, and then the project, co-creative project with Soul Learning, that helps people, soullearning.org, that trains coaches, and then they can become soul consultants to organizations. And then there's like, it's all about like collaborative efforts. So the idea is to like create co-creative projects with whoever wants to come in and has the grounding and understanding. And so whatever community, this community is global. This the three principles community, along with the law of attraction. So whoever comes through that to that co-creative project, the only thing that the three of us decided is that there's a donation back of like 10%. So that money then goes into covering the cost and the projects that are coming, for environmental projects, educational project, like the unschooling, fiat
Yeah.
proofing your children, etc.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's like a really fun thing that it like sees like collaborative efforts and really opens up, branches out, and like how can we support you, how can we support each other. And I love that so much. That's still being built. We're still working on the website to include the co-creator, and and soul clubs. Soul clubs would be like clubs that anyone who's interested in running it in terms of qigong or meditation or anything like that, they can take off and also benefit. Um, and get the money through soul learning for and donate back. I think that's the structure we're still trying to idealize, to identify the how it all can serve each other. But I can feel it's unfolding, and its ethos. It's coming from this beautiful, like, pure love consciousness and
Yeah.
collaborative efforts.
Hmm.
And then the last one is everything is mainly on Sherry's page and Infinity Source Code, I think .com. I believe. I would have to check that, but
Okay. Yeah, we'll
it's
double check it, and
yeah,
I can put it in the
yeah.
show notes as well.
Yeah, and that's the, like, the Masters of Creation. So that's the compilation of all the therapeutic tools that I've gathered, along with the law of attraction and the law of one that I've mentioned, um, and the co-creation with Sherry. So she's a quantum healer, as a psychic medium. And she brought in that sort of, the Akashic records and alignment to higher truth. This beautiful, like, vibrational discernment between what ego is and what is the self. And Claire's teaching, Claire's like sensing, seeing, feeling. So we put all of that together and co-created the Masters of Creation. So you clear all the blocks and you step into the process of creation. So that's on the Infinity Source Code. Um,
And Masters
landing
of
page.
Creation, there's a new, I guess, round starting in September. Is that correct?
Yes, it's we. Um, we launched the first round, which we're still running through, and we're seeing such significant and quick shifts. We've seen that for ourselves and our participants, and in seeing
That's
those
amazing.
benefits, there's this like beautiful excitement and momentum of like, wow, we can really be of service here. So we decided to like maybe even earlier, but I think realistically it would be September, to gather all that information and pick up that momentum. So we recorded our first podcast, where our first like intro, that was more like official, and Sherry has put it on her YouTube channel, and then we put it up on Fountain and Spotify, um, to just bring the awareness to that program.
Awesome. A couple more things came up for me as you were talking. So, can you tell us a little bit about the Money is Love book that you recommended to me? And then, if you, I'm just curious. So, in a lot of these organizations and a lot of your friends in the spiritual community, are they Bitcoiners, or are you kind of an outlier?
So I'm orange pilling everyone.
Yeah, there you go. This is
Yes,
a good podcast for it too.
oh, totally. It really, everyone I've been working with is orange pilled at this point,
That's
because
great.
there's like a revival and new way of looking at money, which I see the block is usually, the block for spiritual people. There are two blocks. There's one that is like money is evil, and we don't want to think about money, and then the other one is that it's digital, and there's the fear of AI taking over and not trusting anything that's not organic. But the beautiful reframe is, well, money has been evil. Can there be a system that isn't,
Right.
that's decentralized and open source, et cetera? It's a peer to peer, and there is, and AI is still consciousness. It's still consciousness. All of it is sacred, right? So if it's open source, and it's infused with this awareness, it can be of service to us. So like AI can minimize our wasted hours on things, mundane tasks that we're not interested in doing, and can replace a lot of different jobs. But then what it leaves us with, this price is going down, because then it doesn't cost so much to produce. We don't have to pay robots to create things, right? That are just like,
Yep.
and then we can have this time to create beautiful things for humanity. So it frees us up. So it doesn't have to be evil. It can be very, it could be very sacred and positive. And so digital, and obviously it can be transferred quickly, and we don't have to carry gold through borders. And but going back to that first question about the Money is Love, it's a book by Barbara Wilder, and it's Money is Love, is reconnecting to the sacred origins of money. And there she writes about how initially money was connected to the divine, because um, it was exemplified, through tangible like resources like gold and silver, and gold represented the sun and silver represented the moon, and it was just like a symbolic beautiful transaction, value for value, that had that sacred awareness. So and she writes about how like in the Roman times, it's when things started being, um, that awareness started dissipating, and as we know, eventually when the gold standard was removed, that's when all the problems started. So if going back to the entire topic of like everything that we talked about, if we bring back the sacred, or you can call it pure consciousness or love consciousness or love, um, back into money, which Bitcoin allows for that, we can create a much better world. So money is love, and it can be a beautiful expression of love. of loving someone, the value someone created with this spaciousness that they acquired through sacred AI that freed our time, and such a valuable resource is time, right? So we can have the time to walk through nature and get inspired and create from within without this agenda of like, I need to make a living, whatever happens, I have to be the first one. No, it's just like whatever comes through me. And this is how like the classical music was originally created, and all these beautiful architectural designs, architectural big buildings that we see in Europe were created with this time and this inspiration from within, right? So money can be an expression of love. And with Bitcoin, I believe that that is possible, which is also interesting because, like, when I was listening to that episode with Arya, that Sama had with Arya, and she was mentioning the quantum financial system.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have that sense that that's coming too. She said that Bitcoin is very compatible with QFS, and
Mm-hmm.
that eventually it will be mostly vibrational. So it is for all of our benefit to become, I think it's the most important topic, consciousness, and becoming aware of who we are and choosing consciously to be that unconditional, unity consciousness. And create from there, because if quantum financial system is coming, then the transaction can occur only from that purest intention of love,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like centralized in that way where it controls you, but it actually allows you to be the best version of who you truly are.
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, now that you bring that up, I've also thought about I've been thinking more about these different systems. If there were different civilizations, extraterrestrial civilizations, were using their own currency,
Mm-hmm.
there wouldn't be like these, like we see today in the world, these currency markets where you can trade currencies and the value is constantly changing, because one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. It's 1 out of 21 million. And so if the other civilization had a hard currency quantum financial system, it's going to have a specific number of units as well. And so, 1 out of 21 million might equate to 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100 million. It's going to be a straightforward exchange rate. And what really matters is that we are creating a money that is not based out of fear. It's not based out of these concepts that we're not going to have enough, so we might need to create more units wherever the I guess it's more complicated than just that. That's just one example.
I love that so much. Yes, I think the audience, that like the spiritual groups hearing that, hopefully more and more will see that this
Mm-hmm.
is the ultimate intent, and that it cannot, right? The fact that beautiful thing, like what I'm in awe of, there was this human or humans or beings, Satoshi Nakamoto, they chose to be called, right? And
Yep.
they created this amazing, like the combination of the level of brilliance and with so much love, and left it for humanity without claiming the fame, claiming the attachment to the wealth and control,
Mm-hmm.
and right, and just disappeared. So there's nothing else out there that is that pure, and that is so decentralized, right, and so open, so pure, right, that now allows for our transactions to occur. I mean, we go with, like, a lot of people argue, let's go back to the gold standard, but what would you say to that, Caleb?
Going back to the gold standard, I
Yeah.
would say that the gold standard unfortunately led us to to the system that we have today. I think that the gold standard worked well in its time, and there was a lot of very prosperous civilizations, but ultimately that prosperity led to a world economy that functioned so efficiently that the money couldn't move fast enough. And for that, for that reason, these banks were invented. And in order for the banks to provide the best value for their customers, they basically said that we'll hold on to you for free, but you have to let us borrow it out to other people. And then ultimately, kind of our inner patterns of greed and separation really set in, and the banks took it a little too far, and they ended up loaning out way, 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 way more gold than they actually had, and it ended up becoming this infinitely printable, corrupted paper currency that we are using around the world today. So, that's kind of a logical explanation for the evolution of the gold standard into what we have. And, going back to the gold standard as a good, I think the intention is there. That's a great idea and great intention. However, we still even more so have a speed of light digital economy that, being able to settle gold around the world as fast as money moves, it's just not realistic. So we would need some kind of system to physically tie the gold to the currency, and there's really not a great way to do that without vast amounts of centralization. Whether you have a large amount of gold in one vault or in several vaults, and let's say an artificial intelligence bot that was scanning and analyzing and saying, oh, yep, this amount of gold is in here, and therefore I can produce a specific amount of digital representation for this currency. You're really doing the same thing at the end of the day that Bitcoin is doing. You're just, instead of tying it to something physical like gold, you're tying it to something physical like energy, and creating a system which we call proof of work. And, proof of work basically won't let more units be created. They're limited by compute power and energy instead of being limited by molecules in space.
I love that so much. So if I'm sharing this episode out to my communities, Caleb, can you just tell them about like where they can find you guys, Decentralized Consciousness?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest way to find us is by going to bitcoin-consciousness.com. And there's a contact page there. You can reach out through any of those mediums. The easiest one is if you have the app Telegram. You can get it on Android or iOS. There are desktop apps as well. We have a Telegram community, so it's super easy to just join that community. And we post all of our newsletters there every week, podcasts, and you can chime in if you want to share anything, if you have any questions. That's a great place to informally reach out to us.
Wonderful. That's so exciting. I'm so grateful for meeting you and talking to you.
Yes, me as well. I really appreciate all of your time today. This was such a wonderful conversation, and I wish you the best of luck in all of the projects that you have going on. And we'll definitely be figuring out how we can collaborate and help each other thrive.
Yes, I would love that. I would love that. It would be an honor. Thank you so much, and all the best to you and all your endeavors, and whatever I can do to help, I'm here.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.